and just really want to welcome you all today to the latest in our Ship Management International webinars. I'm very delighted to be doing it with and hosting it with Keiko Systems, as well as with the Bahamas, and also with Sean Noonan as well, who's a highly regarded SIRE inspector. Just before we go into the details on the webinar, there's just on housekeeping, just to sort of say to the delegates coming in, you'll see at the bottom of your excuse me, your Zoom webinar that you have a Q&A and you have a chat facility. You can obviously send questions out to myself, as well as to the panelists themselves. On the Q&A, that will come through to myself. If you want to send an individual message to the panelists, obviously nice and polite, that'd be excellent, and you can do that on the chat. Now they have the facility to respond back to you individually, or I may well pick it up as well, and we can deal with it there. We want to have a lot of fun today. We've got a good number of people coming in. The debate will last for about an hour. It might just go over 5 minutes or so, and my job is to really sort of make sure that it flows nicely, and really, send your questions in as early as you can, and then we can then on that. So really, just that just leaves me now to sort of formally welcome everybody. The whole issue about preparing efficiently for a SIRE 2 inspection is key. I mean, I was over in Singapore last week for Singapore Maritime Week. A lot of people were talking about it, and I actually sort of managed to encourage people to actually come onto the webinar, because it seems to be a very, very important area. And the debate today will discuss key issues such as the pre-inspection questionnaire. I will ask pertinent questions such as, what is required and how companies can manage this process effectively. So really, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel to you all. I've asked the panelists to really introduce themselves, where they're from, but give a little bit of a 2-minute little perspective and a snapshot on their views on the debate, the question, and then we can then press ahead with the discussion. And again, just saying to the delegates, please pile in, send in your questions. Sean, let me start. You're top left of my screen. Could you introduce yourself and then just give me your sort of 2-minute perspective on the situation?
Good morning, good evening to everybody from all around the world. Sean Noonan, as you know. I've been a SIRE inspector for over 20 years. Regarding the SIRE 2, I've been involved since conception. So the SIRE 2 program basically is lifting the whole inspection regime into a much better system, a much more effective system with optimized safety, when we're actually taking the human element, which is the fundamental building blocks for everything to do with safety, resilience, and welfare at sea. And we're bringing that much more into the spotlight, so that this will encourage everybody to develop what they're doing with the human element, which will enable the seafarers. The preparation of it is obviously very important. And from the human element point of view, the thing we need to understand is, as people are learning new things, new ways to do things, new concepts, then they need a safe place to learn.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sean. And we'll take up some of those issues as the debate gets underway. Nick, over to you, Keiko System. If you just introduce yourself and give a little perspective from your angle there.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Sean. Likewise, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm Nick Vaughan, Head of Maritime at Keiko Systems. At Keiko, we're a maritime software provider, and over the last couple of years, we've specifically developed a SIRE 2 pre-vetting preparation module. So something that works really to support both the crews and the shore teams in this preparation for the new SIRE 2 process. My background's on the engineering side of things. I previously worked for Lloyd's Register for 12 years as a ship surveyor, both in new construction, existing ship. And really within Keiko, our focus has been working closely with the likes of Sean on the inspector side of things, as well as our development partners, Columbia Ship Management, to really provide a holistic solution that, you know, covers both inside information, as it were, from the inspector side of things, as also best practice from the ship managers, to provide a platform that then other companies can use in this preparation process to not only guide the crews on board, but also provide all of the information and the insights for the shore team as well. So guiding them through these initial trial inspections, and then as the process of SIRE 2 is rolled out through phase 4, allowing them to kind of have this platform to have the full information in a digitalized process and really focus on the learning, but also insights into the issues and areas where their energy needs to be focused on, fixing any issues, rectifying any problems, and providing additional training and guidance for the crews.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick. And I think we will have an opportunity to really explore some of those aspects, and certainly really understanding, you know, what SIRE 2 is all about and what is necessary. I think is going to be important. Frank, let me bring you in here from the Bahamas, a very well respected flag state. And you know, what are the sort of key issues there? If you can first of all introduce yourself to the audience, but what are the sort of key issues that you as a flag state are really sort of focused in on?
Yeah, okay, good morning and good evening for those in the East. The flag perspective, I suppose my 30 years at sea and commands were in passenger ships, not exactly a tanker man, but everybody with a master's ticket, and especially in the inspections and surveys department feels a lot of queries from all, let's say, a broad spectrum of shipping companies, including oil tankers and LNG tankers. And the evolution of SIRE 2 we see as giving I suppose, that extra assurance that you have that all of people are preparing thoroughly for inspections beforehand, and we can we're taking on board what we can from how that is done, but we see great value in the insurance side of things, that the companies are fully prepared, the equipment is prepared, and that the crew are familiar with it. And it's the familiarity side of things that I see as the new gauge. And that is very much a part of how companies are not just the vetting process, but also how they're faring in port state control. And we use very experienced inspectors ourselves. We have about 220 of them worldwide who are ex-masters and chief engineers. And that element of the assurance of the inspectors, the quality and the review of the crew's training, competence, and the fact that you've got a spectrum. It's not just a binary thing we're looking at anymore. It's not just, is that working, yes or no? And the guy standing beside you might not be able to communicate that to you very well. So you want to be able to gauge how that is been. And then that goes into the depth of the company's quality program. So their own internal auditors are preparing the crews so that they can perform at a certain level. So it's about a long-term path towards assurance.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frank. And a lot of good sort of material there. I'm going to, just before we start, just to repeat to the delegates, we've got a good number of you in the room today. Please send any questions you have to the Q&A. Just press on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Just tap in a question, and I'll do my best to put it in front of the panelists today. Right. So just really starting, I mean, I think it's quite good just to get an idea of what the difference is between SIRE and SIRE 2.0. I mean, Sean, can I bring you in on this? I mean, if anybody knows, it's going to be you. But what are the differences, and what are the changes that it brings, and what are the sort of flags that we need to keep an eye out for?
So if you like, the existing SIRE system, the original SIRE system up to VIQ 7 is much more about compliance, whether things are in place or not, whether things are working or not. But we're not necessarily deeply exploring, as Frank mentioned, the familiarity of the ship staff with those procedures to the same extent. Where in SIRE 2.0, we split the questions into the three areas: hardware, process, and human. And we're looking much deeper into the background, in particular the familiarity with the procedures themselves, we make sure that the seafarers are aligned with the specific company's procedures. So it is all about open questions from the inspector to explore without bias, without any confirmation bias or subjectivity. And we just ask the ship staff, okay, what is your company procedure for hot work or whatever it is? And then dependent on the level of the person we're interviewing, then we will be gauging the response and matching it up with the company procedures. And then finally, the third layer of the question is to look at the evidence. So we reduced the number of questions in SIRE 2.0 and normally about 90 to 100, whereas in a normal SIRE, it could be anywhere up to 450 questions. The time expected is still the same. It's still 8 to 10 hours for the actual onboard time, but the inspectors will have to do a lot of pre-work prior to arriving on the vessel, probably the day before.
So this, even though the number of questions has been cut down, the time is still the same. But again, the preparation is the key thing here, isn't it?
Yes, very much. And like everything else, when you're looking at how do you enable people to understand and do their job, then a good attention to the familiarization to make sure people not just have read a procedure, but actually understand it and can talk about it with other people. So these preparation parts of it are very key. And from the inspector's point of view, when we're interviewing the ship staff, if we're asking a question and someone is not familiar, you can actually see a lot of the body language will immediately tell us they're not really familiar with it. Or conversely, if they are familiar with it, they have done the practice, they have done the preparation, that is equally very clear. And one of the biggest advantages of the SIRE 2.0 system is we can now actually highlight also positive observations in the system where we have found people are very familiar, very competent and competent in a particular procedure.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Bringing you in, Nick, on this. I mean, certainly with a bit of a nod to the fact that you know your line of business is there to actually help the industry understanding and get prepared. You know, taking on board what Sean has just said there, you know, what is the industry telling you when you're talking to them as far as the challenges that they're facing? Because, you know, and I'll come on with Frank in a second about the layer of regulation that ship owners and ship managers have to you know, endure, and I use that in inverted commas, you know, whenever the ship's coming in. But what is the industry telling you, Nick? What's the feedback you're getting?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of feedback is really the support that's needed for the crew with all of these changes. As you mentioned, there's kind of an increasing complexity of regulation, and when we look at specifically in relation to SIRE 2, it's the kind of in-depth human element preparation that Sean also mentioned there as well. So allowing the crew to be able to be supported in this process. It's not just a one-off static training tick in the box. Okay, you've done your SIRE 2 familiarization, off you go. But it's really providing this continuous learning environment and continuous feedback environment. So the crew can really work through the OCIMF SIRE 2 question library in the elements that are specific to their vessel and operations, and also focus on the areas that are relevant to them within their rank. So we really focus on not only ship type, but rank specific question set. So the crew really know which areas they need to focus on and be familiar with. And as Sean mentioned, not only be confident and competent in, and then allowing them to really focus on the hardware process and human element. And with the human element, we work really closely with Sean on providing a kind of, I would say, more in-depth approach there in terms of whether it's quiz or multiple choice questions to allow them to have this environment where they can also sort of test themselves and do that either individually within the platform, but also, you know, together with other crew members on board of this kind of, as we said, sort of classroom learning where they can sit together and work through those. And this is really the element that a lot of ship owners or ship managers are kind of let's say, looking for this continuous learning, continuous development, and more in-depth insights into what's actually happening on board with the crews.
When you look at this this level of work and preparation that needs to happen, on top of everything else, on top of preparing for other port state control inspections, class inspections, P&I, the whole lot. I mean, this must be a concern for shipboard as well as shore-based personnel with the amount of workload they have?
Yeah, I think it's an increasing concern, and it's one of the areas where I think that the preparation needs to be not only focused, so relevant to that crew member on board, and getting past these kind of generic checklists where things are marked not applicable, or they just kind of go through by rote, and really focusing on the areas where they can add value. So really focusing on the areas where they need to use their knowledge or expertise to inspect or check or test an item in preparation, but also in the human element there, being able to familiarize themselves and link together, when we look at SIRE 2, the OCIMF questions with their company's procedures and their familiarity with those, so that when they do have an inspection, they've really focused on the areas that are relevant for them and not getting sort of distracted by everything else. Of course, for SIRE 2, you could give them a 1,200-page question library and say, read through this, mark in the system that it's been read. But that's not a way to prepare effectively or efficiently in terms of everything else that's happening on board. And I think when you look more broadly with the new SIRE 2 question library, the depth that it covers the areas of operation on board, it's really, I would say, aligned with other areas of preparation as well. So you mentioned whether it's pre-PS or PSC class inspections as well. If we look at the depth, for instance, of the safety inspections and preparation, it all works to support that. So I think the crew being confident and prepared in this regard only goes to support those other areas of inspection, and ultimately aligning as many of those, let's say, inspection requirements as possible on board, so you can check items once, in terms of checking the physical equipment or the procedures on board, and that would then be applicable for multiple different types of inspections from third parties.
Frank, let me bring you in on this. I mean, and just touching on that sort of thread of the increased workload on board. I mean, there are a lot of regulations that, this is why, you're starting to see smaller ship owners still going towards the management companies. They need to have the back office staff. They need to have that support to go through it. But as the flag states, this increased workload, does it concern you? I mean, in the sense of, keeping people focused on what they need to be doing, really?
I think it helps bring focus in general. When there's a large workload, you tend to be very focused on specific things for a specific period of time. And yes, I do see the question being asked from the captains, how could we manage this? I hope some of them that are on leave are actually watching this I'm sure they're involved in their company's preparation for it, because it's a large workload, and the superintendents, etc., and the management are sharing this out amongst their senior masters and senior chiefs and getting people to prepare for it and getting their teams focused on it. So I just think that the larger the workload, the more focus there is, but it's difficult to split your time and be effective, because people will there are so many things. So if you look at it, the navigational risk assessments that have to be done, some of them have to be done dynamically.
Yeah.
If you want to watch people preparing for mooring, or outcome practice on mooring is excellent, but you still have to observe people doing that and get an assessment of their knowledge and skills and the equipment and how it's set up. The cargo assessments. So there's quite a lot in that, even how they're behaving in traffic, which can bring other people's focus. It can trigger poor state control visits if there's concern around ships' behavior in traffic. So they have quite a lot to prepare for, but I know that the only common thread is I see people asking for more people in the office to support them, and and the captains then saying, I need more people on the ships to support us, because there's a lot of photographs. I take photographs of the ship's side or this piece of equipment, and it has to be, well, I prefer to see things with people in them, but in these rules, there's no people in them, it's just the equipment. It has to be dated in a certain way and updated. And then pushing out all of that training, I can see that not only do the company's management team have to be watching, as we do as Flag, involved in IMO you're involved in the cycle of 4 years ahead for legislation. You see the drive of industry, you see the concerns. We're watching in the rear view mirror incidents, and I'm glad to see that's come into SIRE as well. So that SIRE inspectors are coming in with a broad view, and the flag has a broad view as well. But then the focus of the ship is question X, Y, Z answered, and have we the evidence for it, and is it within the time frame allowed? So within 6 months, for example, with a photograph of the ship's hull. And how do you manage that? How do you manage to push the training out? So I see companies managing that very cleverly. Let's say these huge data files that you have for training videos for a specific piece of equipment or whatever it is, you're going to have to push that out to the ship, and some people are having specific servers just for all of this information, just for training, so that the captain it doesn't get locked out of his email, for example, because of the size of it. Because I know how many megabytes are in even the shortest training video of a half an hour. It's easily over 30 megabytes. So it's quite a lot of data being pushed. And the captains have to manage all of that very efficiently, and the onboard team, not just captains, chief engineers and superintendents pushing it out. So there's quite a lot of work involved, and they're all asking for more staff, more support staff. But I see it's geared up now to a high level. One company was telling me that 500 people trained up, and then they're starting the people on board. that's a lot. That's a lot of work. So I applaud them.
Yeah, I mean, it does put that spotlight on the need for competent people, ashore as well as at sea, who can come in to do that work. But I think they're talking about 36 to 42 photographs per vessel or so under SIRE 2, which is a huge amount there. Sean, let me bring you in, and I mean, just as a SIRE inspector, let's go to the nitty gritty here. What are the challenges facing shipping companies looking to prepare for this? I mean, we just heard from Frank talking about, we need more people on the ship, we need more people in the offices. But what are the challenges, and how well prepared, are shipping companies to meeting the inspection needs of SIRE 2.0?
Yeah, if you like, if we roll just very quickly to 10 years ahead, and all of this stuff has been in place and has been embedded in the industry, then you can generally understand that the familiarity, how to look after the equipment, how to do the procedures, how to do all the navigation, all this kind of stuff will be a lot stronger than it currently is. However, where we are now to where we are going to be in 10 years, there's a lot of work to be done. There are new ways of thinking and new ways of applying the familiarization, bringing much more the human element into actually everything we do, so that it's not just, as Nick was saying, a tick box exercise. Compliance-based thinking was better than nothing, but when we're optimizing safety, when we're bringing the human being into the fore, it's much better. So to help sort of prepare at this time, then yes, people will have to, and I see this in a lot of companies already, superintendents to visit a ship. Then they will actually get the launch to go around and take the necessary photographs. We would prefer that they would obviously be updated every 6 months. It's very clear, though, that we don't want people to take unnecessary risks just to meet those needs. However, with good planning, it should be easily possible. Actually, optimally, every 3 to 4 months, whenever the ship is able to, if they can get the latest photographs without people, as you said, and with the proper date stamps on them. So that gives a much more live version that then the vetters will be able to see the condition of the ship, which is then compared to when the inspector, like myself, goes on board and will say, yes, this is representative, or maybe there's a couple of things that need to be highlighted about it during the inspection.
But on that preparation side, I mean, are you finding that the ships and the ship owners and managers are taking that seriously? So when you're going on board, it's pretty straightforward because they have prepared in advance and they have prepared well.
When a shipping company has never done a SIRE 2, they don't really understand the depth of the extent of the change, and it is a little, I would say, almost unnerving. to them, because the way that we ask the questions is much more in depth. We're looking at the procedures, we're comparing the answers from the interviewed observed person to the company procedure to make sure they're more or less aligned. We're not expecting verbatim, but we are expecting that all the necessary safety critical steps and tasks and associated material is clearly understood to the extent of the observed person that we're interviewing. So obviously the master needs to know an awful lot more about some of the procedures than necessarily the galley boy or something. The other big thing is, of course, a big change is the number of people that we interview on board in SIRE 2 is a lot more. We will actually talk to the ratings a lot more. We will ask them some meaningful questions about what they had been doing in their last fire drills, etc. How do they do enclosed space entries? And we're taking remember, the number of questions has been reduced. So the focus of where we're looking at are those high safety critical areas on board the ship. And these are the areas that really need to be clear if we want to get another big quantum leap in safety. And I think it's entirely possible with this new system, but there is a lot of work to be done. Some companies have gone and done a lot more work than others, and that is clearly seen when we are looking at it. And I've done now over a dozen SIRE 2 inspections. When I've gone back into companies that have done maybe 2 or 3 before, and they've now had a bit of time, and they understand what the question sets are and how to prepare for them better, then it's clear when the inspector goes on board, when we ask him these questions, that they have practice, they know what they're doing with it. And that's one of the advantages of the KAICO system, is it really just enables that preparation.
Thank you for that, Sean. Nick, let me bring you in on this, because I think looking at the system that you've got, I mean, this element being the pre-inspection questionnaire, that's very, very important. But what are the what are the findings you're getting when you're talking to the market on this? You know, are things being thrown up that are surprising you as far as sort of what's been asked and what they're expecting and what they're prepared for? What's the sort of feedback on that as far as the questionnaire is concerned?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the pre-inspection specifically, it's one of these kind of new elements. So I think companies are obviously very familiar with the kind of HPVQ from the previous SIRE regimes, but obviously now there's a kind of increased amount of preparation and information that needs to be uploaded in advance of the inspection. So one element being the pre-inspection questionnaire and also the photographs that we talked about as well. And maybe on that note with the photographs, that is an increased workload, right? Obviously across the ship and the shore. And that's one of the elements that was raised early to us, and we've really focused on trying to make that process more efficient, but also make it, let's say, trying to provide as much guidance or structure so that we make sure that things are done correctly first time. Because as I think Sean mentioned, you know, it's not necessarily easy every time to take the photos. And, you know, we don't want to increase any risk there. So really making sure that when the crew do go to that effort to take the photos, particularly at the outside of the ship's hull, they have the guidance in the application. You know, the system automates some of that. So, you know, we can automatically time and date stamp the picture. We can ensure that the pictures are taken in landscape mode in accordance with the OCIMF requirements. We also provide example pictures and guidance so the crew really know A, what they should be photographing or how it should look, and B, what it looked like last time, right? So we can ensure this consistency and make sure that, you know, where the crew do go to the effort to maybe get in the fast rescue boat or from the quayside, they take the picture right, and they're not waiting days or weeks to get feedback to say, hey, no, please take it again. And once the pictures are taken on board, they're all compressed on the device to reduce this data transfer. And I think Frank mentioned that as well. You know, there's a larger amount of data now being required to transfer between ship and shore. So within the system, we really compress everything to reduce that size and kind of automate that process so we can transmit things seamlessly from ship to shore, removing all this need for emails or file shares, etc. And now looking at the next stage, which is working directly with OCIMF via their APIs to see whether these pictures can then be automatically uploaded to kind of streamline this whole process. And maybe on the PIQ side of things, obviously this being a new element, there's areas of kind of, I'd say, much more static data that don't change, and then there's the kind of operational data or updates that may be required to be updated. We're still waiting really to see what happens there, because this information does all have to be uploaded into the OCIMF portal prior to the inspection. But currently there's no API available. So there's no way to automate or integrate that process to upload or push the information. So really at the moment, we're kind of communicating directly with both Intertanko and OCIMF to see what happens there in terms of either availability of APIs where we could then look to integrate, or whether this is something that would be incorporated, for instance, into the OCIMF particulars editor tool at a later stage. But that's still something that we're seeking clarity on.
How would you update and upload the information then if there's no API available? I mean, because that's a problem, Nick, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the OCIMF web portal, which is where the submitting companies or managers can obviously log in and upload the information. And via that portal, there's a means to, let's say, set up the initial PIQs for the vessel and then update and upload that information prior to every inspection. But that's obviously done via the portal. Whereas obviously what we're looking at doing when we look at photos is trying to make that process from ship to shore to OCIMF as efficient as possible. So, using APIs to integrate where possible.
And do you mind me asking, putting in there across you, Sean, and asking Nick, do you finding that there is an offline version it'll take at the moment it gets a connection? So.
Yeah, so our system's been designed to work specifically offline on board. So the crew really take the device, the intrinsically safe tablet, with them anywhere on board the vessel. So they really have all the guidance they need in the palm of their hand, whether it's collecting the photos, doing the inspections, etc. All of that information is cached offline, and it's just when they come back to the ship's accommodation, end of their watch or end of the inspection, connect the device to the onboard Wi-Fi. And as I mentioned, everything's compressed on the device and then can be automatically uploaded to the cloud there. So as you mentioned with the data, we really focus on compressing the data as much as possible to kind of reduce this transmission across whether it's VSAT or now increasingly seeing vessels using Starlink. But really the offline capability is key there. So the crew really can use it anywhere, anytime, have everything they need in the palm of their hand.
Sean, do you want to come in on this? Just any thoughts or comments on this?
Yeah, sorry, I was answering questions on the Q&A, so I was not quite fully up to speed with exactly what was being said there. Could just a very brief recap?
We're just really talking about the facility, the ability to upload the data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, the handling the data, it does take preparation. It is, for those who have never done it is a new system. A lot of the recent SIRE 2s I've done, some of the uploaded information has not been fully completed. We do have procedures for that and how to cope with it on board from the perspective of the SIRE inspector. So I think as more people become familiar with it, as more companies get used to how it should be done, then it will be a lot more consistent and carried through. The ability to upload and link things, someone did actually put in the Q&A earlier on that maybe there could be a link between the PIQ information and the HVPQ. That one might also be a good. We already look in OCIMF from the PIQ and the HVPQ when we're looking at the question sets, and those question sets are unique each time an inspection is assigned. Even if it's reassigned, it then becomes again a unique inspection. And the basis for that is we will take the information from the PIQ and the HVPQ. So having that information up to date and accurate is very, very important. So yeah, I think as we're getting more used to doing this, and as I say, I know some companies now that were involved in the trials, and they have been now doing SIRE 2 for years, and they are fully conversant and they find it very easy. And when I've been on ships like that, actually, the SIRE 2 inspection is actually a very good, friendly inspection format where we're looking to see a full proper view of the ship in the mirror so that we can share the learnings and move together. Because the big Another big change of the SIRE 2 is one of the things the human factors experts have stressed to all inspectors is the role of the inspector is to go on board and help the ship staff see themselves so that we can find the good learning opportunities to move the safety forward. And we do that, as I say, by sticking to using only those open questions. So it's not about what an inspector expects to see, it's about what actually is happening within the company procedures, and making sure those procedures, of course, are aligned with industry best practice.
Brilliant. I'm going to go on to some of the questions there. I know I think you've been responding to a few of them there, Sean. But just so the rest of the audience can hear as well. We've got one question here. What is the latest schedule to start phase 4 of SIRE 2 program and the kickoff date? Sean, do you want to have a little answer on that one? I know you've penned something on there, but just maybe get a bit more detail.
Yeah, we had an announcement through the OCMF system just last week, actually, and the expected transition, providing we meet the goalposts, the necessary goals that we have set to allow the transition to go through, will be Q3 of 2024.
Okay. From our regular questioner, anonymous attendee, thank you very much. We just had a trial SIRE 2 trial inspection. The quantity of questions seemed unrealistic. Inspector had to rush to complete these reports. When seeking crew for procedure and took time to present, and considering the inspector had to catch up with his time, then the inspector, basically, really, the inspector was rushing through things. Reconsider to reduce the questions to give more time and mentoring, feedback giving of the inspector rather than entirely fault finding. It's probably more to do with the inspector rather than the process, I would have thought. Inspector himself was not very ecstatic of the change. That's quite interesting. On personal sharing, he shared how many vetting inspectors quit this field, around 30%. And when I asked what was his motivation to stay, he said it's because he's the family breadwinner. Sean and anybody, Sean and Nick, I'll get your thoughts on this. It's a good question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a major change for all of the stakeholders who are involved, including the inspectors themselves. We did give a lot of training and adjustment to try to align the mindsets for the new inspection program. But like everything else, having a good, safe place to learn is very important. And again, the tablets, the program through the KYCO systems enables actually also inspectors to get more familiar with what's being looked at with the guidance notes, what they're required to do when they're on board these things. When there's ever any change of this nature, and I have done big culture changes in companies, there will always be resistance. Now, the actual number of inspections who've retired, some have naturally come to that level. So that 30% is not because necessarily just because of SIRE 2.0. There was also a degree of inspectors who were not able to go through because we did have very high level exams for all inspectors, and not all inspectors were able to pass those exams, and therefore they were not going to be transitioning into the new SIRE 2. So yes, there are inspectors who are uncomfortable with the new system and are deciding that they will use this opportunity to stand aside and then allow others to come through. But there's also a lot of good support I have found in the system for the new inspection regime. I certainly, I've run a shipping company. I know what it takes to be safe. We in Tarquin became the safest shipping company in the world. It took a lot of effort and a change of perspective, but once we actually set up the human being as being the most important element inside the system, actually it became easier to run the system, and there was a lot more information, and as a result a lot more safety. So change is always going to be difficult, and we need to manage it within OCIMF itself. Of course, we are not myself, but I'm not directly representing OCIMF today, although I do on occasion. But this is being taken very seriously, and we are very careful about what's going on. We are listening, and we are reviewing what's happening, and we are taking action when it's needed.
Can I just thank you very much, Sean? Really, really good information there. Nick, can I bring you in on this? And really, I think with the system that you've got, is going to hopefully smooth out some of the sort of the issues there that we're talking about there. But what are your thoughts on this? And then Frank, if you have anything you want to add in as well,
Yes.
just chip in. But Nick, over to you.
Yeah, I think as Sean mentioned, change is always hard, and there's kind of, let's say, change on many elements here: a changing regime, a change of doing preparation, a change in the way it's reported as well. I think often people look at software being a solution in itself, but it's part of assisting with the management of change there as well. And that's really where our focus has been, as Sean mentioned, focusing on the individual, because ultimately it's the crew on board that need to facilitate the vetting inspection. And although you have a physical ship, it's the crew that are really responsible and can let's say make or break it. And so really the focus for us has been on the individual as a crew member. And let's say, I shouldn't say fighting fire with fire, but we looked at the OCIMF process and how they've digitalized, and that's very much aligned with how we see let's say inspections and reporting on board as well. Allowing the crew to use the latest tools to kind of support and supplement their daily activities. So as opposed to having this, let's say, older concept where you go do an inspection and where your kind of like skilled work is done and then coming back into the ship's office later and spending an equal, if not longer amount of time on a desktop computer typing things in so everything's recorded, looking at how we can facilitate the whole process to have both the guidance, the support needed on the device, allow the reporting and information to be collected all together. So really focusing on that holistic element. And we can see it's the same way that OCIMF have kind of the same process on the inspector's side. And actually, one of the elements working with Sean that's been great is, I think, seeing that perspective of, okay, this is not only the kind of reporting tool internally for the shipping company and the sandpit for the crew to kind of practice and really focus on the transparent element there. This is internal. The crew can do this pre-inspection in Kaiko and be, let's say, honest. So it's not trying to hide things, but really give transparency there within the company so everything is visible, can be managed effectively, can be prepared accordingly, but also working with Sean, seeing how that can also benefit the vetting inspectors as well, to have a platform themselves, where they can also prepare for future vetting inspections, have this full question set, see all of the information that's needed, kind of a sandpit, as it were, to play in and prepare as well.
Frank, just bringing you in on this point about 30% of inspectors quitting the field. I mean, are you concerned about this? I mean, are you
I can see that in our own inspection regime as well.
Yeah.
There are inspectors who are at a natural age where we've asked them to plan their succession, and those. Some guys it's like being in command. People want to hold on to the sticks until the last second, But the more mature people I've seen in the industry do prepare for that. So I think that's something that all companies should plan for, as succession, and that's key to that part of it. But as regards the skill of preparing for quite a large spectrum of regulatory questions, I think having a very clear plan with very clear time slots, and then from the company's perspective, having people prepared for their particular level. So using those question banks effectively and building on them from their own recollection, almost like a wash down. Let's have a wash down. Let's get it on paper and say these are the elements that the people are focusing on with this particular inspector. I certainly kept the question bank of inspectors' questions, for example, in marine evacuation systems for passenger ships, and I had 150 questions that could potentially be asked, but I know that the hard part to deal with in the variation, I suppose, the system is trying to get towards this clarity in what's covered, is the variation in inspectors. And that's why the standard of inspectors and the examination of inspectors to know their skill level is current is quite a challenge for them if they're a sole person with their own business to get to keep abreast of all of that knowledge. And there's where industry has to come back and support them. And indeed, flags, having frequently asked questions, or data banks of easily accessible information, so that flag can support inspectors as well, because they won't just be an inspector for SIRE, they will be a flag inspector for several flags. And when we push knowledge out there, we try and get that out through our own marine information notices, and we're trying to keep them as current as the IMO currently is, and planning ahead to make sure the sense of that change is there as well, so that the inspectors are supported through very relevant information on the flag website. So I like to look at it from a flag perspective. We have the same challenges for our inspectors.
and I think, you know, you open another can of worms here, really, as far as succession is concerned, as far as attracting the right people into the industry and actually having that capability there. And that's a big issue for shipping, you know, whether it's this or whether it's getting superintendents, for instance. You know, we're now starting to hear that they're employing a lot of managers and owners, employing superintendents who've never been to sea, you know, because there's a shortage, and all of these things are a problem. Just going through, we've got a good flow of questions coming in. I know that Sean, you're busily typing an answer to the first one here. Do you? No, just a second. Where am I going to find it? Actually, Sean, do you want to read out that question? Because I think you're typing it, I can't. The one you've just been responding to. Somebody's been talking about. Where are we now?
You'll be in the answered questions.
The answered questions, yeah, that's correct. Oh, because it's gone on there. Yeah, okay, that's why I can't read it. Let me find it. Okay. Under the octave contingency for completing inspections without the use of tablet, is it something likely to happen once phase 4 kicks in? I know you penned something. Do you want to just explain your answer there?
Yeah.
Sean?
Okay. So there's various reasons why we use the tablet, one of which covers some of the other questions that have been typed, is have we actually got the number of questions correct? So if we are finding that inspections are taking longer because the number of questions are too many for the expected 8 to 10 hours, then the idea is that we would look at reducing the number of questions per inspection so that we give greater focus where it's needed. Of the ability of not using the tablet, obviously there will be occasions when, for whatever reason, the tablet is not available. There are contingencies in place. If the inspector has the ability to open the computer up in the ship's office and such like, then they can actually go online in their own inspection login, and then they will have all the questions set there available to them on board. It's not obviously as efficient as the tablet, but it is still the same inspection question set. There's also the facility to have that in paper format. So if we know prior to going on board the ship that there is big issues, then we could even print up the question set and use it. But when we're not using the tablet themselves, then that would have to be very carefully explained why the tablet is not being used, because it is much the preferred medium for conducting the SIRE 2. It gives us the best quality control of everything we're doing within OCIMF. And yeah, the facility for contingency is there. It's robust. It's been tested in not just the computer, but the paper-based system more than once. And so far, it seems to be doing what we require it to do. It's more challenging, obviously, but it's there and it is available and will still remain so.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for that, Sean. Our friend anonymous attendee has also asked, are there enough inspectors around to kick off SIRE 2.0?
To be honest, we've just started up a new inspector training program. So the new inspectors coming in will be only trained up as SIRE 2 inspectors. So those training programs are now being put in place. So we are acknowledging the fact that, yes, we do need to bring in more inspectors to be able to manage the expected number of inspections across the world, to allow the vetters to get meaningful information when they are assessing the level of risks involved in using various chips. So yes, we have a new program in place where there will be more inspectors coming in. And I actually get quite a few people coming up to me. Had one just a couple of weeks ago asking, how can I sign up to be a SIRE inspector? So
Right. Well, that's good. And have you got any tips to companies, in the way that they're preparing for this inspection? Just to hints and tips, really. Little bit of a sort of little checklist. 7 ways to actually be fully prepared. Any thoughts on that?
if you want to prepare, you have to do the work. I'm afraid there's no other way around it. So if you're unprepared when the inspector comes on board, it will be very clear that you're unprepared. Which, when we're in the safe place to learn, we have at the moment non-commercial inspections going on, which helping ships operators and ship staff to do their first 1 or 2 in SIRE 2 inspections, where there is no commercial ramification to what they're actually conducting. So I would obviously advise everybody to take advantage of that particular system as it currently exists. But when we transition into the next phase, the SIRE 2 platform will be the only platform, and they will be commercial. So you will have to do the hard work. That means, of course, also that the relevant questions to the relevant ranks need to be clear so that people know what's coming. The core questions, which are the high risk questions, if you like, are very clear in the system. And they are conditional, they are ship specific. So you won't get gas questions on a chemical boat, etc., etc. It will be very much very focused inspection for that ship, for that shipping company. And it will also relate to previous inspections under the SIRE 2. So if there had been negative observations within the system, those will also appear in the new question set for the next inspection. With competency-based behavior, one of the things I do when I help people understand how that works in the most effective way, the simplest way of doing it is it's about muscle memory. The Americans call it muscle memory. So if you've done something before, the body automatically will start doing what it needs to do. So if you have practiced responding to the questions, then it will be a lot easier for you, anybody, to answer any questions when it comes to the actual inspection. So obviously you can't spend all your time doing this, but if they take 1 or 2 questions every now and again and onboard the ship, and they actually go through and talk about this, okay, I'm going to be the role play, the inspector. These are the questions. It's an open question. So what is your company procedure for blah, blah, blah? Then you reply, then we'll go to show me the company procedure. You go into the system and you, because one of the big things of the new inspection with SIRE 2 on companies that have not done it before is the ability of the ship staff to be able to go to the right place to show the right procedures. And again, shipping companies who have done 3 or 4 inspections, it's a lot easier for them. But initially, that finding where everything is can be a challenge. And if you've practiced it once or twice, then that will be very clear. The body will automatically tell the inspector, yes, this person is familiar with this procedure.
Nick, have you got anything to add on that, Nick? Looking at the sort of, you're here to help the industry sort of get to terms with it all. Any comments?
Yeah, I think to kind of mirror what Sean said, it takes hard work, and it's kind of starting as soon as possible. I think with the, let's say, go live date being pushed back, a lot of companies have maybe been sitting and waiting to see what happens. What's been really positive from our perspective is actually the number of companies that have moved ahead early and want to get, as it were, ahead of the curve, and not only preparing their crews and also their shore teams, but also getting involved in the trial inspections as well, and aligning that as well with the process in the KYCO system as well. So, doing these trial inspections, but having KYCO in place already so that they can run the pre-vetting inspection on board internally within the company, and then do the actual, trial SIRE 2 inspection. And I mean, we've had really great feedback, and actually had a kind of test on board in one company where they did 2 trial inspections, one using KYCO beforehand and one kind of without. And it was really positive to see a lower number of negative observations on board the vessel that had prepared using KYCO. And as Sean mentioned before, giving the crew that ability to do the practice and preparation up front, particularly with these new human element areas where they can really start to familiarize themselves, become confident in that regard to communicate. Because to reiterate what was mentioned before, there's a wider number of crew members that could be interviewed by the inspector, and picking up on certain areas like the galley staff with the deep fat fire extinguishing system, making sure that they're familiar with the process in terms of when the system would be maintained, how it's tested, and where those procedures lie in the company procedures as well. And if they've done this preparation, worked through the KYCO app on these rank specific questions, this is something that's already familiar to them and can be communicated effectively when they have the actual vetting inspection. So, really getting started early and not sitting and waiting, doing the preparation up front, and also equipping your crew members with a tool and a system that allows them to do this preparation versus just relying on Excel lists and paper documents that, we see time and time again. It just ticks in boxes.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Frank, the question here, I'm going to rattle through. I must congratulate the audience today. I mean, they're whizzing questions in left, right, and centre. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I'm taking pictures of the answers there, just in case. I don't know how the system works, but we will get the Q&As back up to everybody who's in on the debate today, the webinar today, and the answers. But Frank, we've got a question here. Does Bahamas Maritime Authority incorporate SIRE 2 methodology into your flag state inspections process?
Not currently, but I'm the one who updates it, so it's up to me. I can see the benefits of it, the huge benefits of it. Already, I would say if you're at 76 pages, we're a little bit short of that, but it's expanding all the time because we're continually looking at incidents. We're continually looking at crew welfare issues. For example, MLC is now 1/3 of all deficiencies. So it used to be that you had firefighting appliances, LSA, for example, in port state control as a third-party gauge on the industry. If flags are leading, we need to take account of that. I would say if I could urge companies to get their culture right, and that is really largely around coaching. And that you can have prepared very well, and then you do a major crew change, and half the crew who were there when you were doing the preparation have changed. You get people who come in and they're not quite up to speed on it. So how does a company reach out to them? Do you provide? I saw one very forward-thinking company which got people computers and did computer-based training at home as part of their culture, and that was a car carrier company a very long time ago who just thought, let's get ahead on this and make sure that people are doing training around. I know the cruise ships. When I go to inspect large cruise ships, and I want to see crew practice. So I can say flags can help with for example, electronic logbooks that make sure there aren't 15 spreadsheets recording everything and they're all being transferred and updated in a very manual way. It's the integrity of electronic record book systems, then QR codes for certification, so that you can instantly get a green light on all of that. So let's say classification societies are doing that as well, flags are doing that as well. So that even port state control, you don't spend so the inspectors don't spend as much time on the actual paperwork. That paperwork is pre-done, pre-verified, and then when you have the green light, they go out and see people practicing the job. And it's there where you see the company's safety culture coming into being is that we have safe systems of work around all of the core elements, that people are aware of the campaigns outside, and they could be current campaigns in port state control, or there could be current campaigns in Occam, and the rotational stuff, the stuff that you need to look at every now and again, that's been filtered in just to see, are people aware? It's the peripheral stuff that comes from the culture of the company, and a very good, strong culture will absorb all of that. It's quite a lot to think of there.
No, thank you very much, Frank. And we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. We're bang on the hour now, but I'm going to just sort of rattle through some of the questions here, and I can see Sean. Sean's working very, very hard there. Thank you very much, Sean, for responding. I do appreciate it. Would it be possible to receive the Q&A list after the webinar? I mean, we're going to do even better than that. The debate today has been video recorded. It'll be edited down. It'll have nice whizzy sort of names and a bit of music at the beginning and all that stuff, and it will be available in the next week or so, 2 weeks maybe, on the shipmanagementinternational.com website, and then also on the KCO. We'll be sending it over there to put on their website. So, you know, say to delegates, get your colleagues to sit in and listen to it. You can download it at your leisure. Forget Netflix. This is far more important, far more interesting on a Saturday evening. But yeah, so you can then sort of go through the debate again and just really get an idea of what's actually been discussed and the responses. Just here, when will the new inspector course commence? Has the date been fixed? Anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, you can go on the OCINF website or contact the OCINF themselves or any of the submitting members, and that information will be available. Obviously, anybody who is not yet an inspector and wants to join the system, you have to be sponsored by one of the submitting members, and that's the way forward. Okay.
Somebody else has said, as we're now in the process of digital forms, you just actually logged in now, so we may well have sort of, will inspector comment if the forms are only saved in the company's software or on board, or must still print and physically sign the forms? Sean.
Yeah, this is what we're asking is, what is your company procedure? So it is whatever you have decided is your procedure is what is to be in place. So as long as that is robust, as long as that is meeting the needs of the ISM for document control, then however you do it is up to the company. So we will just be asking, what is your company procedure? Show me the company procedure, and then show me the evidence.
Okay, lovely. Having conducted a number of trial SIRE 2 inspections, we've seen low numbers of observations, and those that have been received have been smaller, defect related or certification related, leaving aside the observations related to photographs having failed to upload correctly. In short, the inspectors seem to be treating this as a VIQ8 and shy away from the human element portion of the inspection. Who would like? Sean, is that you again? Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'll certainly answer it. Yeah, it's a transition for everybody, and it's not going to happen overnight. We have to be patient. There's a lot of work going along with the quality assessors in the background, very much looking at what is coming through and helping. We have the ability to assign mentors to inspectors who maybe are not quite getting up to speed. So someone like myself would necessarily go with them just to help them to make that transition when it's been found that they're not quite making enough of the transition just from the training that had been given through the OCIMF already. Regarding the observations so far, the majority seem to be actually in process, not in defects or in the hardware side of things. So that's another big transition. The defect management system, if you are following it properly, your company procedures, you may end up not having any findings, even if you have defects in your hardware, providing you are managing them properly as per your procedures and, of course, international requirements.
Frank, you had your hand up. You want to make a comment?
Yeah, defect management has always been, in my view, how we know as flagged that many defects happen on discovery through inspection, through maintenance, and the company's record of how they deal with that is their greatest defense. And it's the greatest defense against incidents and assurance as regards the capability of the vessel. And then not only that, the capability of the crew. So it's how they're supported right through from the company, from the highest level of management, supporting the DPAs, make sure the resources are there for the master and the chief to make sure that the ship is effectively managing things that break. But of course, having the quality there in the long run to make sure that through inspection you're dealing with them. You have spares, you have adequate spares. We're seeing that as companies that don't have the capabilities of oil companies or gas companies are suffering from the lack of this support. So it's great to see it brought up as a topic.
Brilliant, thank you. And just really finally, because I know we're sort of over the time now, is there a contactable point in OCHIM to provide feedback, clarity from experience learned during trials? That's a good question, actually, Sean. Do you want to sort of just give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's various mechanisms. Anybody can go in and log into the OCHIM website, and there will be one of the headings you can select, and you can make any suggestions, or you can contact them directly, or you can use the Intertanko reporting feedback forms. We encourage feedback because we're all learning. We're all trying to do a better job with safety. And if we work together, then that's how we get to the safer place for everybody and improve the lot of the seafarers. Because remember, at the end of the day, the seafarers are the ones who provide the industry with their safety. So anything we can do to help the seafarers will improve industry safety.
Well, thank you very much, Sean, and probably a very, very good place to end on there. Can I first of all just thank the audience for coming in today and their participation. You've been one of our most active group of delegates. Very, very proud of the questions that have come through. Really, you kept us all on our toes here as well. So thank you very, very much indeed. As I said, the debate recording of the debate will be available on the SMI website, shipmanagementinternational.com, and also we'll be whizzing it over to Keiko as well as to Bahamas and over to Sean as well, so they can do what you wish with it. And we'll be pushing it out on social media. We will be writing and covering it in the next issue of Ship Management International editorially. So that'll be good to actually spread that word on that. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed for your participation today. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of information there. It's certainly a webinar that's sort of struck a chord, I think, with the industry, judging by the sort of reaction that we've had today. Thank you very, very much for your measured answers, and it's been a joy working with you in the run up as well as today as well. And thank you to Keiko as well for all your help as well in putting this together. If I can just say thank you very much indeed, and I look forward. I'll bring it to a close now. And as I said, we'll have the video up on the website over the next week to 2 weeks. But thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.